the biggest scandal in human history. Classified information impossible for the human mind to accept, and shocking facts and secrets told with evidence for the first time about Jeffrey Epstein. From a poor child to one of the world's wealthiest, and from a lazy student to a leader in the Israeli Mossad agency controlling the world's most powerful leaders. They announced his death in 2019, and the biggest shock is that they found him alive walking around inside Israel in 2026. Celebrities and politicians who rule the world and decide the fate of entire nations and peoples, from wars to aid, while preaching morality, peace, democracy, and human rights, are involved in child abuse and human trafficking. 3 pieces of the Kaaba cover were sent to Epstein. Who sent them to him? And what was the purpose of him obtaining them? And what does he do with them? Sensitive, classified information that Israel uses to blackmail world leaders. And anyone not convinced by conspiracy theories or that a group of people runs the world as they please after watching this video will change their mind. As for Trump, he exploited the issue during his campaign that led him to victory, promising voters he would release and expose the Epstein files upon taking office. But once he became president, he began dodging the question. When the anchor asked him when he would release the Epstein files, he replied, "Shut up, you pig." Elon Musk, who constantly claims to fight corruption and demands that authorities release the Epstein files and punish those involved, was found to be involved when the files were released. Bill Gates asks Epstein, "How do we get rid of all the poor people in the world?" Who are the 3 Arab individuals who had a close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? What is the difference between the corruption of Epstein and Diddy? And why is there no accountability for those involved, despite them being exposed to justice and the world? The events of this terrifying case begin when millions of angry protesters took to the streets across the United States of America, demanding that the government immediately release the full facts and hidden secrets of the Jeffrey Epstein case. Hoping that the victims who suffered for years will find justice and that all involved influential officials will be punished without exception or discrimination. In response to this massive popular uprising and relentless public pressure, the American government bowed to the people's demands on January 30, 2026, as the United States Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation stepped forward. After years of stalling and promises, they finally released over 3.5 million classified documents related to the Jeffrey Epstein case and created a special web page on the Department of Justice site, allowing the public to read those files and learn their sensitive secrets. But the real problem was not in the release of the files themselves, but in the way they were presented. Attorney General Ted Blanche appeared at a press conference and said they had made a great effort to review the files, that they had handled them with the utmost transparency, and that all they did was redact information that might harm the victims or affect national security. However, the problem emerged when people, investigators, and journalists began examining the files as they discovered that the matter was far from transparent. The redactions were a scandal by any measure. Entire pages were covered in black, and the names of many figures were completely hidden, while at the same time names of people were deleted from one page but clearly mentioned on others without any logical explanation. Also, information that was supposed to remain confidential about the girls became available to everyone, while other names were hidden without any clear reason or logical justification. In this way, many people began to believe that someone was trying to cover up bigger issues, and that the 3.5 million documents presented to the public were nothing but a farce aimed at hiding the truth. To begin, and to understand why the Epstein scandal is considered one of the biggest scandals in the West, we must first understand how the law there views the issue of underage girls. The entire case revolves around just one word: minors. In most Western countries, anyone under 18 is considered a minor and not fully responsible for their decisions or actions. Therefore, the law prohibits any relationship of this kind with minors, even if it is consensual between the two parties. In other words, if a girl is 17 years, 11 months and 29 days old and enters a relationship with an adult man, the law in many jurisdictions considers that a crime because she has not reached the legal age, which could lead to the man being held criminally liable, while the girl is legally treated as a minor in need of protection. That is why most reports on the Epstein case focused specifically on this issue. However, some documents and testimonies that emerged indicated that a number of girls went to Epstein's homes of their own free will, and some received money in exchange for that. Some testimonies also mentioned that one girl spent long periods on the island recruiting other girls to go there in exchange for money. Some of these girls were told from the start what was happening there, while others were deceived and told they were going to provide regular massage sessions. However, a Netflix documentary presents some global figures as victims, asking the American public for full sympathy. Even though some testimonies and documents indicate they were involved in luring other girls for Epstein, and that they are criminals just like him and part of the same network. This shows how they steer the truth and manipulate it right before people's eyes. That is why many politicians and celebrities linked to the Epstein case were not primarily afraid of exposing immoral affairs or infidelity, but rather of accusations involving the exploitation of minors, a serious criminal offense that could carry a life sentence. To dive deeper into the details of the case, we first need to ask ourselves, who is Jeffrey Epstein, who turned the whole world upside down? Epstein was born in Brooklyn in 1953 to a poor Jewish family, to a father named Seymour, who worked in park maintenance, and a mother named Pauline, a housewife. Epstein entered university in 1971, but did not complete his education there, and left university without obtaining any degree. In a strange and sudden turn, he found himself working as a math and physics teacher at the Dalton School in 1974, one of the most prestigious private schools where the children of the wealthiest and most powerful families in all of New York are educated. And here is the question that shocked everyone. How could someone with no degree get a job at such a prestigious educational institution? The answer is that Jeffrey was hired by Donald Barr, the father of former United States Attorney General William Barr. But what could connect a man of such power and influence in America to a young man who did not finish his education and comes from a humble family in Brooklyn? The truth is, no one knows the answer. What matters during this period, in the mid-70s, is that Epstein was not the ideal teacher. Instead, he would show up wearing gold chains with his shirt unbuttoned, and his behavior toward female students raised many questions. As suspicions about his behavior grew, he was fired from the school. Strangely, his firing was not the end of his downfall, but the start of a meteoric and illogical rise. How could someone with no real experience in finance suddenly go from a fired teacher to an employee at the investment bank Bear Stearns? And strangely enough, one of the school parents who had strong connections recommended him directly to the bank manager. Just 4 years later, Epstein went from a simple bank manager to a limited partner within the firm. But just as quickly as he entered, he left. In 1981, investigations were opened into him regarding a case of insider trading, a financial crime punishable by law. And so began the true and mysterious journey of this man, a man who, whenever he fell, returned to rise to an even higher level. After Epstein survived the financial cases that nearly destroyed his future, he entered a phase of amassing a terrifying fortune, the source of which no one ever knew. Suddenly, he founded his own firm, Epstein and Partners, for money management and investments. He set a strange condition. He would not accept any client unless their wealth exceeded $1 billion. This was a big deal for someone who had just emerged from a federal investigation and lacked a long history in wealth management or building financial institutions. Yet, despite this, billionaire Leslie Wexner, owner of the Victoria's Secret Empire and the Mega Group, suddenly, and without warning, handed him the keys to his entire fortune, granting him general power of attorney to manage his money and assets as if they were Epstein's own, a move many considered very strange. From that moment on, Wexner became one of the closest people to Epstein. Through this transaction, money began to flow to Epstein and multiply significantly. Even stranger, Wexner gave Epstein a Manhattan mansion, considered one of the largest and most expensive private homes in all of New York, valued at about $78 million, along with massive financial transfers made to Epstein under various titles and names. Over time, Epstein began building the image he wanted to project to the world, the genius billionaire in the world of finance and friend to scientists. But behind the scenes, there was another, much darker side. At that time, Epstein was involved in major fraud cases, most notably the Towers financial case, in which he was a partner with Stephen Hoffenberg, and which was considered one of the largest fraud operations in history back then. Stephen Hoffenberg was sentenced to 20 years in prison, but Epstein walked away from the case as if he were never involved, even though Hoffenberg himself admitted that Epstein was a key partner in the operation. This supported the theory that Epstein was always protected by powerful figures, and if Leslie Wexner was the key to Epstein's wealth, then Ghislaine Maxwell was the passport that granted him entry into the world of the elite and the wealthy classes. To understand Ghislaine's role, we first need to know who her father was. Ghislaine is the daughter of the British billionaire and famous press baron Robert Maxwell, a Jewish billionaire who owned a massive media empire in Britain. No news or important information would pass without going through his hands. He was also known for his strong ties to the entity, and many suspicions swirled around him that he was an agent for the Israeli Mossad. In November of 1991, Robert Maxwell died in a mysterious incident as his yacht was found at sea while his body was floating on the water's surface. The official report stated he drowned, but no one believed that story. Even stranger, when his family searched for his fortune, estimated at $2 billion at the time, they found it had vanished, leaving $0 after banks seized all his assets. As for Ghislaine, the pampered daughter whom her father used to take to parties and meetings with high-profile figures, she suddenly found herself transformed from a billionaire's daughter living among the elite into a destitute woman facing a severe financial crisis. At the memorial service held for her father after his death, Jeffrey Epstein appeared and approached her, promising to help her and her family overcome the crisis they were going through. From that moment, their relationship began, and Ghislaine became his friend, his partner, and even his lover. She had the connections and acquaintances to reach anyone in the world, and he had the money to open any door. She told him the fastest way to break into the elite world and gain the trust of the powerful starts with public donations and charity work. Indeed, Epstein began a massive fundraising campaign, directing large sums of money to universities and scientific research centers, which made his name shine as a successful businessman and a lover of science and scholars. And from here, his connections began to expand even further. As for the massive mansion Epstein got from Leslie Wexner for just $1 in the heart of Manhattan, the most expensive spot in all of America, it turned into a trap for girls dreaming of fame and stardom, as Ghislaine would lure teenagers under the pretext of auditions and fashion shows for Victoria's Secret. So the girls would go there to audition for work in the fashion world. But instead of meeting Victoria's Secret designers, they would find themselves before Epstein himself, always accompanied by Ghislaine Maxwell, who at the time acted as the manager of these activities, as she was the one who convinced the girls to do whatever Epstein asked of them. And she would deceive them by saying, "You are doing nothing wrong, and everyone does it." In the late 90s, they began to feel that the secrets of the Manhattan mansion could be revealed at any moment. So, Ghislaine suggested that Epstein buy a private island, far from prying eyes. Indeed, in 1998, Epstein bought a private island in the Virgin Islands called Little St. James. The island was in a perfect location for Epstein. No one could enter it without an invitation from him, and no one could leave it easily either, because it is located in the middle of the sea and far from prying eyes. There, he built a massive mansion, along with dozens of suites and luxury guest rooms. But more importantly, there was not a single inch on the island not covered by secret cameras. Any guest entering the island was recorded, both audio and video, without their knowledge. Meanwhile, Ghislaine continued her role in managing these operations. She would go to places where girls aged 14 to 17 were present, or to gatherings of the wealthy. There, she would meet girls working simple jobs, then offer them easy work. A 30-minute massage session for a wealthy man for $200 per session. After that, it would turn into sexual assault. Although many did not object to the relationship due to their difficult life circumstances, and some believed the billionaire would shower them with money, Epstein would then try to turn the girls into part of his network, telling them, "If you bring your friend, you will get extra money." Each girl would go to convince her friends to accompany her to the island. Thus, the network began to expand and grow larger, and the girls were introduced to his elite friends and acquaintances who visited him, which made it an organized network. Its clients were the most powerful people in the world. In 2002, before Epstein's name became known to the public, the first attempt to expose him occurred by Vicky Ward, a journalist at Vanity Fair magazine, as the magazine sent her to prepare an investigative report on businessman Jeffrey Epstein. But while gathering information, she accidentally found a girl named Maria Farmer and interviewed her. Maria said that while working at the reception in Epstein's Manhattan mansion, she saw with her own eyes a stream of young girls that Ghislaine was constantly bringing to the mansion. She also described the house as being full of hidden cameras, and that one day Epstein took her to a secret room containing monitors, displaying feeds from all the cameras inside the mansion, where she saw with her own eyes a live feed from cameras placed with extreme precision above the beds and inside the bathrooms, recording everything that happened. She also said that Epstein and Maxwell personally assaulted her in 1996. When she went to the police and the FBI, she was threatened with death if she tried to expose them again. Maxwell told her, "Be careful what you try to do," while Epstein threatened to burn down her house and harm her family. After threatening Maria, they reached her little sister Annie and tricked her by claiming they would help her finish her studies. But the question that strongly arises is, since Maria knew how dangerous the two were, why did she let them reach her little sister so easily? The important thing is that after they lured her younger sister under the pretext of helping her finish her education, they assaulted her too at Epstein's ranch in New Mexico. Then, journalist Vicky Ward decided to confront Epstein herself and went to his mansion, but he denied all the accusations and kicked her out. And it did not stop there. Sometime later, one day while Vicky was returning home, she received a call from Jeffrey Epstein himself, who said to her, "I am very angry with you. because I did not like the investigation you wrote about me, so watch yourself so that your pregnancy goes well. For she was pregnant at that time. Despite her strong insistence on publishing the investigation, the magazine's management refused to run it and instead published an article praising Jeffrey Epstein, titled "The Talented Epstein." After Vicky Ward failed to publish the story, Epstein continued his suspicious activities as usual until March of 2005, when the Palm Beach Police Department in Florida received a phone call from an angry mother, reporting that her underage stepdaughter had been sexually assaulted. The mother explained in her report that one of the girl's friends encouraged her to go to a wealthy man's mansion for a half-hour massage session in exchange for $200. There, the man assaulted her. The report reached police officer Michael Reiter, who took the case seriously and began investigating and looking into the details. Through the investigation, the officer discovered that the mansion described by the girl belonged to the famous businessman Jeffrey Epstein. The officer began monitoring the mansion and noticed strange activity. Girls of middle and high school age were constantly entering and leaving the mansion. This prompted him to search old reports, where he found an old report from two girls accusing the man of the same charge, Maria Farmer and her sister, whom journalist Vicky had previously interviewed for the investigation. Michael continued following the leads and searching until he gathered testimonies from 33 girls, aged 14 and 15, all of whom told similar stories and recounted the same details. Based on this evidence, the police obtained a search warrant and raided the mansion. There, they managed to secure photos of girls in compromising positions, making the case complete and the file sealed with evidence. Epstein was brought to trial, and naturally, everyone expected this to be his end, and for the court to sentence him to life in prison. Under American law, the case is considered child exploitation, even if the girl is 17 years, 11 months, and 29 days old, as we previously explained. But the surprise was that after entering the court, he left after only 2 or 3 hours, then headed straight to the airport to board his private jet and flew immediately to Tel Aviv. From there, Epstein hired about 250 lawyers to defend him within America. These lawyers, led by Alan Dershowitz, succeeded in striking a secret deal with federal prosecutor Alexander Acosta, stipulating that Epstein would deny all charges against him in exchange for pleading guilty to only one reduced charge, soliciting a minor for immoral acts. Under this plea, he would be sentenced to only 18 months in prison. Most importantly, this deal included a dangerous secret clause granting Epstein and anyone else named in the case full legal immunity, protecting them from any future prosecution regarding these crimes. The suspicious deal was not limited to the lenient sentence and immunity. Of the 18 months he was sentenced to, he served only 13, then was released for good behavior. Even during those 13 months he spent behind bars, the deal allowed him to leave the prison daily for 12 hours, 6 days a week. He would wake up in the morning to find his private driver waiting with his luxury car outside the prison gate. Then head to his office to manage his business and live his life as he pleased, only to return at the end of the day to sleep in prison. He was even permitted to furnish his own cell to his personal taste, making it look like a room in a 5-star hotel. After his release from prison, he returned to his normal life as if nothing had ever happened. Following Epstein's release, his case and suspicious deal remained buried for many long years, until the year 2017. At that time, journalist Julie Brown of the Miami Herald was working on an investigative series about corruption in the American judiciary. While digging through old files, the Epstein case caught her eye. She decided to delve deeper and uncover its secrets. So she went to meet the first police officer on the case, Michael Reiter, who told her all the shocking details he knew. Julie continued working and searching until she reached 80 other girls, in addition to the 33 girls whose testimonies Officer Michael had previously collected. Most importantly, she succeeded in obtaining a copy of the secret agreement between Epstein's lawyers and the federal prosecutor. In November of 2018, she published a series of articles titled Perversion of Justice, in which she laid out all the investigations, testimonies, and damning documents she had uncovered. These articles shook American public opinion. Television channels and social media platforms erupted, and everyone began talking about the Epstein scandal and how the American judiciary colluded with him for years. Under immense public and media pressure, the United States Congress demanded an immediate investigation into the old deal and the reopening of the entire Epstein case. During this uproar, the man was in Paris, but he received assurances from his influential network in America that things would go smoothly, just like the last time. But this time, his case faced the power of social media and the speed of news, which is no longer like in the past. On July 6, 2019, he decided to return to America with full confidence, thinking that everything was under control. But a shocking surprise awaited him the moment his plane's tires touched the tarmac, as he found Federal Bureau of Investigation agents waiting to arrest him immediately, and all his homes and mansions were raided to seize all sensitive files. The raids resulted in the discovery of computers, compact discs, photos, and massive ledgers containing records with the names of all the influential figures who used to visit him. As for Epstein, he was moved to the high-security Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan, and the world began awaiting the trial of the century that would expose the biggest figures ruling the world. A few weeks after Epstein's arrest, a cheap Hollywood scenario unfolded. On August 10, 2019, the world woke up to the news of Epstein's death inside his cell under mysterious circumstances. Official authorities said that Epstein hanged himself inside his cell. But from the very first moment, many did not believe this account, especially after the mysterious and suspicious details and circumstances surrounding his death emerged. First, Epstein was considered the most important prisoner in all of America at that time, so he should have been under heavy guard. 2 weeks before his death, he attempted suicide, leading to his immediate placement under a strict protocol known as Suicide Watch, which meant 24-hour surveillance and constant monitoring via cameras. Strangely, however, this surveillance was suddenly lifted just days before he died. Second, on the night of his death, the 2 guards assigned to check his cell every 30 minutes fell asleep for 8 consecutive hours. When they woke up and discovered the disaster, they were terrified, so they forged and fabricated the official guard logs to cover up the gross negligence they committed that night. Third, the surveillance cameras monitoring his cell and the hallway leading to it suddenly and mysteriously malfunctioned that same night. Fourth, his cellmate was moved to another cell just 1 day before his death. All these strange coincidences made it impossible to believe the official story. The phrase that spread across the whole world at that time was, "Epstein did not kill himself." Additionally, forensic pathologist Michael Baden, hired by Epstein's family to observe the autopsy and monitor the investigation, issued a shocking report stating that the injuries on his neck are more consistent with intentional strangulation than hanging, and actually closely match injuries resulting from manual strangulation. But the big surprise that shocked people after the authorities convinced the world of his death is what was recently revealed: that he did not die at all, but was smuggled out of prison and his death was faked, and that he is living inside Israel with documents bearing new personal information, just as intelligence agencies do when their agents are exposed. And the biggest scandal is that officials in the American Department of Justice wrote his death report one day before he died. The announcement of Epstein's death did not close the case file. On the contrary, it made people more determined to know the truth, not only about his crimes, but also about the people and entities that protected him and who decided that he had to die. From the very first day his case became public, suspicions grew regarding his secret ties to intelligence agencies. The most famous theory suggests he was an agent for the Israeli Mossad, and that his entire network and island were a calculated intelligence operation aimed at blackmailing world leaders to ensure their absolute loyalty to Israel. This theory is fueled by several indicators, including photos in the files showing Epstein wearing an Israeli army uniform, in addition to his close relationship with the Ghislaine Maxwell family and her father, Robert Maxwell, who were the most important part of his rise. Robert Maxwell, as we mentioned earlier, was known for his strong ties to Israel, to the point that many experts confirmed he was a Mossad agent. The proof of this is that upon his death, a grand state funeral was held for him in Jerusalem, attended by then Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir, who delivered an official eulogy describing Maxwell the father as having provided services and achievements to Israel far exceeding what can be spoken of today. The Israeli president at the time, Chaim Herzog, also participated in the memorial, delivering a eulogy in which he said that he had ascended to heights and levels reached only by kings and princes who were waiting to meet him. The attendance was not limited to this, as 6 heads of the Mossad and Israeli intelligence agencies were also present. The most shocking evidence was the statement attributed to federal prosecutor Alexander Acosta, who oversaw the Epstein deal in 2008. Acosta told Donald Trump's team during his nomination for Secretary of Labor that when he tried to increase the sentence and pursue the billionaire, he received instructions from higher authorities ordering him to let Epstein out of prison and freeze the case because he belonged to intelligence. Another piece of evidence is what was revealed in email correspondence between Epstein and former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak in December of 2018, where Barak was arranging an important meeting with Hamad bin Jassim bin Jaber Al Thani, the former Prime Minister of Qatar. During the correspondence, Epstein wrote, "It is necessary to clarify to them that I am not a Mossad agent." Barak replied asking, "You or me?" Epstein then clearly confirmed he was speaking about himself. Through these messages, it becomes clear to us that he was working with them and asking Barak to cover for him. In addition, other messages revealed that Epstein was funding an Israeli company specializing in cyber weapons manufacturing. When all these threads are gathered together, they form a clear picture for us that Epstein's island was not just a den of prostitution, but was one of the largest honey trap operations in modern history, where important global figures were lured and secretly filmed in compromising or criminal situations, leaving them under threat and blackmail for the rest of their lives, which enabled him to gain that immense influence and protect himself for many years. The deal the United States Department of Justice made with Ghislaine Maxwell when they arrested her with Epstein was that they would place her in a comfortable, low-security prison with many perks in exchange for not mentioning the undisclosed files, and that Trump would grant her a pardon and she would be released from prison. As time passed, we reached the year 2026. After years of stalling and deferred promises, the United States Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation decided to release a massive batch of classified files totaling about 3.5 million documents, in addition to thousands of photos and videos. During a press conference, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche announced that authorities had reviewed nearly 6 million documents and decided to release 3.5 million of them, while the rest were withheld either for lack of direct relevance to the case or for national security reasons. However, This statement did not end the controversy. It only fueled it further. Who actually decides whether these documents are related to the case or not, and what facts are still hidden within the remaining 2.5 million documents? Although the volume of released files was massive, many people fiercely attacked the Department of Justice, describing this release as a mere charade. They argued its goal was not to reveal the truth, but rather an attempt to absorb public anger and close the case forever, especially after it became clear that the released documents were full of problems and gaps. And the redaction process that took place, which involved hiding sensitive information, was a scandal by all standards. Although Todd Blanche boasted in his conference about the high precision and professionalism with which his team handled the documents, but once people examined the files, they discovered great randomness and laughable errors, as they found that someone's name had been blacked out on one page, while the same name appeared clearly on another. But the biggest shock was the contradictions within the documents themselves, as some files were found in 3 different versions, each redacted completely differently. In one version, names were hidden while addresses remained, while the exact opposite happened in another. This blatant confusion allowed any researcher who placed the 3 versions side by side to reconstruct the entire document and reveal information that was supposed to be hidden, which raised widespread questions among people. Was what happened the result of stupidity and incompetence, or was it a deliberate and intentional act for some reason? The victims' lawyers went to the media and attacked the government, saying the government that promised to protect the girls is the same one that exposed their data to the world. According to reports, the personal information of over 40 girls appeared in the documents unredacted, including one of the key witnesses in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, as a copy of her driver's license was published with all her details exposed. Conversely, the names of some potential suspects were carefully redacted, leading many analysts to believe this chaos was intentional by the Department of Justice, whether to distract public opinion from big names or to intimidate the victims and psychologically punish them for speaking out and revealing the truth. The first documents we need to examine closely are Epstein's private correspondence, including a short and shocking message sent by Jeffrey Epstein to an unknown person whose name was completely redacted from the papers. Epstein was asking the other party in the conversation, "Where are you? Are you okay? Do you want the torture video? What is the torture video that the billionaire was talking about? And who is that mysterious person he is exchanging torture videos with, and how can they discuss this topic with such coldness and simplicity?" When FBI agents confronted Jeffrey Epstein's close associates with these messages to understand the truth, they evaded answering, claiming they remembered nothing, and that it perhaps referred to thriller movie scenes or boxing clips. The leaks also revealed the most horrific things found on the island, which were files and photos related to cannibalism there. These leaks brought back the story of Mexican model Gabriela Rico in 2009. She was invited to a party on Epstein's island, then ran out screaming in the street, saying that world leaders know everything. "I knew about the crimes, yes, but I did not know they were eating human flesh." But no one believed her at the time. In fact, public opinion deemed her insane, and she was committed to a psychiatric hospital. The biggest shock is the disappearance of Gabriela Rico from the hospital, with no news of her to this day. In another email dated September 11th between Epstein and another person named Tancredi Marchilio, Epstein asked him, "What do you want me to do with her? Should I have sex with her, or just torture her?" In another email from November of 2013, there was correspondence between Epstein and another person whose name was withheld, where Epstein told him, "I want a list of new people to work with on ice cream pudding. He replied in surprise. You mean ice cream pudding? Ask for something like waterboarding at least. For reference, waterboarding, for those who do not know, is a torture method famously used by some intelligence agencies during interrogations, known as simulated drowning, where they place a cloth over a person's face and gradually pour water on it to prevent them from breathing, making him feel as if he is nearing drowning or death. Then they remove it to force him to confess. This method is internationally banned today. The other party replied that he imagined today would be a torture day for him, before concluding his speech with the phrase, "Happy Torture Day." All these signs confirmed that violence and torture were an essential part of Epstein's world. In another email, a man named Ray Hodges, who worked with Jeffrey, wrote a message saying, "I want to inform you that all the men really enjoyed the pizza today, and thank you very much for letting us do that." Of course, it may seem on the surface like a normal conversation about pizza or a simple event, but the phrase, "thanks for letting us do that," is very suspicious in this context, especially when we know that the word pizza was mentioned in the Epstein files over 1,000 times, and that there are files that have been redacted. And it was uploaded again after they removed this word from it, so the search result currently stands at 845 times. So, what is the purpose of specifically deleting the word pizza from some files? Furthermore, another email sent by someone who worked with Epstein, likely Stephen Kaufman, although his name was completely redacted in the papers, included a photo of a young girl, and the subject line read, "Pizza Monster." And when Epstein received this email, he replied with the phrase, "looks pregnant." The link between the word pizza, underage girls, and organized sexual abuse is not new. It brings to mind the famous conspiracy theory known as Pizzagate, which emerged in 2016. Which linked American Democratic Party officials to a network of sexual abuse, although mainstream media fiercely attacked those theories, labeling their proponents as crazy and fools. A photo was also published of former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak entering Epstein's mansion in New York, wearing a mask so no one would recognize him. One of the things that has occupied people most since the files began to be released is the big names and celebrities involved whose names appeared in the documents. Even though evidence that could incriminate them was deleted and withheld from the files, the controversy continues regarding the figures who may have been linked to the case. One of the most prominent names in the spotlight is that of American President Donald Trump. The relationship between Trump and Epstein is old and well known to the public, as both were prominent socialites in New York and Palm Beach during the 80s and 90s, and their photos together filled magazines and newspapers. Trump himself even made a famous statement during a press interview in 2002, describing Epstein as a terrific guy who likes beautiful women just as much as he does. But after Epstein was imprisoned the first time, Trump tried to distance himself from him completely and publicly stated that he had cut ties with him for good and banned him from entering his famous resort, Mar-a-Lago. In fact, the newly released files did not provide any conclusive evidence of a direct crime committed by Trump, but were limited to revealing details of some investigations and reports. Among those documents, a report emerged from a girl stating that Ghislaine Maxwell introduced her to Trump at a party as if she were a commodity for sale, after which Trump invited her to visit the Mar-a-Lago resort, where he personally took her on a tour inside the resort accompanied by Epstein and Maxwell. She also confirmed that she was not subjected to any direct misconduct by Trump, but described the atmosphere as being set up for it, adding that Maxwell would tell her that Trump liked her very much and that she was lucky, and would advise her to wear certain clothes to attract his attention more. One email dates back to 2011, where Epstein stated he had met many bad people in his life, but never anyone as bad as Trump, claiming there was not a shred of good in his entire body. This raises the pressing question: why did these leaks, totaling 3.5 million documents, emerge at this particular time? The answer, according to some analyses, is that a hidden power is sending subtle messages to Trump, implying that while they haven't harmed him yet, they could expose him and reveal his secrets if he does not comply with their demands. This pressure aims to force Trump and Washington to support Israel and bomb Iran, a blackmail tactic for which intelligence agencies like the Israeli Mossad are known. The major shock came in 2026 when Donald Trump refused Israel's demands to enter the war against Iran, as a video was leaked of him with Epstein and children dancing at a party. This video served as an explicit warning to Trump: either enter the war or face a scandal that would lead him to prison. Based on this video, Trump announced entering the war against Iran without logical reasons or the approval of the United States Congress. When the emails leaked, they asked Trump about them. He replied, "Enough. No one wants to talk about Epstein. This topic is old and over, and we must talk about more important things." Then he uploaded a video of Obama and his wife dancing with monkeys to distract people from his involvement. The leaks also published a photo of a very important person on the global stage who was hiding his identity behind a Joker mask and causing corruption on the island, but no one knew who he was. But the question that begs to be asked is, who is this person who possesses such influence and power that their name is erased and their identity hidden, at a time when even the biggest names were not spared, to the point that the name of the President of the United States of America was mentioned openly in those same documents? In a related context, there is a prominent global figure who has long presented himself as a voice opposing institutions many describe as corrupt: Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, who presented himself as the hero fighting agendas and demanding equality and democracy. When the Epstein case emerged, he demanded full transparency and the release of all related files. Musk also confirmed on several occasions that he declined multiple invitations from Epstein and that he never once visited the island. And when he feuded with Trump, he posted that Trump does not want to release the Epstein files because he is in them, but emails revealed that it was Musk who was seeking to visit the island. In December of 2012, Musk sent a message to Epstein telling him he would be in the Virgin Islands area for his vacation. Epstein replied, asking how many people would be with him so he could send the helicopter to take them to the island. Musk replied that he would only be bringing his wife, Tallulah. Then he asked Epstein which day the wildest party on the island would be held. Another message indicates he was planning a second visit in January of 2013. But this visit did not happen in the end. The surprise is that the cancellation was not Elon Musk's wish or refusal, but rather Epstein himself who cancelled the appointment, telling him that his schedule would not allow him to attend. This shows that Musk's alleged heroism in rejecting the villain's temptations was nothing but a flimsy lie. When news about Elon Musk leaked, he began posting about rockets and aliens to distract people and the media from him. Under intense pressure, he posted a statement saying he never went to the island, and that anyone who did should be punished by the authorities with prison, claiming he was only joking with Jeffrey Epstein in the emails. Among the big names that also appeared in the documents, the name of Bill Gates stood out, the founder of Microsoft and one of the richest people in the world. The files revealed that Epstein was openly blackmailing him, as a draft was found that Epstein wrote to himself in 2013, preparing an explicit threat to Gates, attempting to pressure him to resume their investment and business relations. This threat came after Bill Gates completely cut ties with him following his imprisonment, as he wrote in the draft that he was surprised by his behavior, especially after the great services he had provided him. Epstein had met a Russian girl named Mila Antonova in 2010 and discovered a secret relationship between her and Bill Gates. Epstein intervened then and paid all her coding school expenses out of his own pocket. Epstein later demanded that Bill Gates repay that money. Although he did not need it, being a billionaire, he was sending an indirect message to Gates, letting him know he had damaging information on him, referring to the transmission of a sexually transmitted disease that required medication he had to give his wife without her knowledge. The important thing is that Epstein was pressuring Bill Gates hard to work with him again, to restore the social standing he lost after his first imprisonment. Although this email was just a draft Epstein wrote to himself, and no one knows if it was sent to Gates or not, it reveals the complex nature of their relationship. Although Bill Gates's media team immediately came out and denied all these allegations, calling them lies, there are facts that are hard to deny. Shortly after the date of this draft, a $1 million donation was transferred from the Gates Foundation to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology based on a direct recommendation from Jeffrey Epstein. The correspondence also revealed another message where Bill Gates asks Epstein, saying, "How do we get rid of all the poor people in the world?" Among the big names that also appeared in these leaks, the name of Prince Andrew stood out. But the surprise this time was not just text, but actual photos. The story dates back to 2001, when Virginia Roberts filed a complaint against the prince, but Epstein's powerful influence at the time helped dismiss the case as if it never happened. At that time, Prince Andrew went to the media to deny any relationship with Epstein. But today, among thousands of leaked photos, a shocking set of images has emerged of Prince Andrew, son of Queen Elizabeth and brother of King Charles. Although the photos lacked any caption or date to specify their location, they clearly showed the prince sitting over a minor girl whose face was obscured by black redaction. Regardless of what was actually happening, the image spread quickly like wildfire. In addition to the photos, messages exchanged between the prince and Epstein from 2010 surfaced, in which they were arranging a meeting between Prince Andrew and a 26-year-old Russian girl, where Epstein handled the coordination himself, describing the girl in his messages as smart and beautiful, while Andrew replied that he would be pleased to meet her, which shows that the relationship between them was not just a passing friendship, but a completely suspicious one. Email leaks claimed that Ghislaine Maxwell brought a girl to Prince Andrew in the 90s and he tortured and killed her as a sacrifice to demons. Also, British intelligence, MI6, knew about all his crimes and was covering up his scandals. As a result of these scandals, Prince Andrew was stripped of most of his royal and military titles, becoming just an ordinary family member with no official role. King Charles is currently seeking to erase any trace of his brother from the public scene to protect the reputation of the British throne, to the point that a decision was issued to completely ban him from appearing on the royal palace balcony with the rest of the family during official occasions. Among the big names that have returned to the forefront, the name of former United States President Bill Clinton has also emerged. Despite his repeated denials of visiting Epstein Island, leaked photos proved otherwise, as he appeared in various shots accompanied by girls providing him with massages, in addition to flight logs that revealed Clinton traveled on Epstein's private plane 26 times. Most were trips for charity dinners in various parts of the world, yet they remain damning evidence of the depth of their relationship. A declassified document from January 2024 also showed that a victim under a pseudonym stated she saw Clinton on the island with two young girls. In addition, when the police raided Epstein's mansions, they found a strange painting hanging on the walls of the house, a painting by the artist Petrina Ryan Clyde, depicting Clinton sitting on a chair in the Oval Office, wearing a blue dress and red high heels, a clear reference to Monica Lewinsky's famous dress and the old sex scandal Clinton was linked to. Analysts said this painting was a deliberate method used by Epstein to exert psychological control over Clinton, and not just him, but also other influential figures who visited the island. Hanging a painting that insults a former American president inside his residence served as a threat to anyone who stepped foot in the mansion, implying, "Folks, I possess the secrets and keys to the most powerful people in the world, and I fear no one." Among the strangest names to appear in these files was that of the famous physicist Stephen Hawking, whose name was mentioned in the context of an orgy. As it turned out, the name appeared in an email exchanged between Epstein and his assistant, Ghislaine Maxwell. Days of the defamation lawsuit filed by victim Virginia Giuffre against Maxwell, in which she accused Ghislaine of running a sex trafficking ring and facilitating assaults for the billionaire. Epstein told Maxwell in his email to offer financial rewards to any of Virginia's friends or relatives who would go public to deny her claims and prove her testimony in court was false, so he could use it as a strong card to play, such as her claim that Stephen Hawking attended an orgy on the island. Epstein wanted to prove that Virginia's claims were baseless lies. He chose the Hawking story as definitive proof of her fabrications to tell the court, "You are witnesses that she claims a paralyzed man, unable to move his body, attended an orgy." Therefore, her testimony about him, about me personally, about Prince Andrew, and about Clinton is nothing but fabrication and lies. It has been proven that Hawking did indeed visit Epstein's island in 2006 to attend a scientific conference organized by Epstein there. There are also photos documenting the visit in a normal and public setting. Many scientists who attended this conference said that Epstein was generously funding their research. Among the most controversial files in these leaks, the issue of the kiswa of the Holy Kaaba that was sent to Jeffrey Epstein stands out. The threads of this mysterious file go back to February of 2017, when Saudi businesswoman Aziza Al-Ahmadi, who resides in the Emirates and serves as the chief executive officer of Boss Bunny Games and as an advisor to the Department of Culture and Tourism in Abu Dhabi, coordinated with a person named Abdullah Al-Mamari to send 3 pieces of the Kaaba cover to Jeffrey Epstein. According to the email, these pieces were sent as a gift for a mosque, but it is unclear if they were planning to build one, as the wording is vague. The 3 pieces sent were carefully selected. The first was cut from the fabric of the Kaaba's interior walls, the second from the outer kiswa, and the third was unused kiswa fabric. These rare pieces were then transported via British Airways to reach Epstein's mansion in March of 2017. Following that, Aziza Al-Ahmadi sent a message to Epstein explaining the deep moral and religious value of these pieces, where she told him literally, "This black cloth has been touched by no less than 10 million Muslims of various sects, Sunnis, Shiites, and others, while they were circumambulating the Kaaba. And each one of them does their utmost to be blessed by touching it, while beseeching God with prayer, hope, and tears, hoping that all their wishes and prayers will be fulfilled as they hold this piece." Nevertheless, the emails did not explain how Aziza knew Epstein or why she sent him these specific pieces. However, some reports say the relationship began when Epstein sent a letter to the Saudi royal court, proposing the idea of creating an Islamic cryptocurrency similar to Bitcoin. Aziza showed interest in the subject and personally handled the communication process. But the shocking surprise when we search for her in Epstein's files at the Department of Justice is that the name Aziza al-Ahmadi is mentioned 969 times. Upon examining the documents, we find very intense communication, especially between Aziza al-Ahmadi and Epstein's private secretary, Leslie Groff. These correspondences reveal a close relationship that went beyond official work, turning into a strong friendship. This is confirmed by the fact that when Hurricane Irma devastated Epstein's Island in September of 2017, Aziza reached out to Leslie to check on their safety and the damage caused to the island. When the secretary replied that there was material damage but everyone was safe, Aziza responded, "I promise to send you a new tent," and added a laughing emoji. In another message, Aziza contacted the secretary saying, "I want a quick appointment to see Jeffrey today before I leave for New York to say goodbye and wish him a happy birthday. I only need 15 minutes. The secretary replied, "You are welcome. That is no problem, but let me check the schedule first and I will get back to you." Although there is no criminal evidence proving Aziza al-Ahmadi's involvement in those activities, it is very strange that when the Epstein scandal broke, she deleted all her online accounts. No one could reach her or hear her comment on the matter, and even the gaming company where she serves as CEO has completely shut down its pages. As for the second controversial Arab figure, it is the Emirati businessman Sultan bin Sulayem, chairman of DP World, whose name appeared in the Epstein files 9,413 times, and he had a close relationship with him for many years. Several photos of them were leaked, including one where he is cooking for him, and the highly controversial photo of bin Sulayem and Epstein standing and looking at a piece of the Kaaba cover lying on the floor. We do not know why he was there or what they were planning to do with it. Emails exchanged between them also revealed discussions about their sex lives and the sharing of pornographic websites with each other. In one of the messages, Epstein asked bin Sulayem, "Can Muslims be friends with Jews and Christians or not?" Bin Sulayem replied, "Islam permits marriage to a Jewish woman, so why can they not be friends?" Jeffrey said to him, "You are one of the best friends I trust, and you have never let me down in your entire life. I love the time I spend with you." As for the third Arab figure, he is Sheikh Jaber bin Yusuf Al Thani, whose name was mentioned in the files 4,699 times. He is a Qatari businessman from the royal family, and he held several prominent positions in the Qatari government. According to the emails, he met Epstein often for secret purposes redacted by the United States Department of Justice. Epstein also introduced Sheikh Jaber to Ehud Barak, and he was pleased to meet him. In one of the messages, Epstein offered the services of his company, Carbine, an Israeli firm that provides technology services, to help secure the World Cup in Qatar. Expressing that he was interested in the matter and ready to begin talks, as he proposed securing the World Cup through his Israeli company, saying, "Recognizing Israel would serve your interests greatly." Then he asked, "Would the Qatari people allow you to normalize?" As for determining who holds the reins of this case, since there are reports claiming Epstein was an agent for the Israeli Mossad, Benjamin Netanyahu is the party who controls all the secrets of this file, and he is directly responsible for determining which names are made public or withheld. To cover up these facts, the British Daily Mail newspaper published a report claiming that Epstein was an agent for the Russian intelligence agency, the KGB, basing its foolish narrative on the fact that he brought some girls from Russia. The difference between Epstein and Diddy is that Epstein did not like black girls, and he banned any black girl from entering his island, unlike Diddy, who dealt with everyone without discrimination, as he took everyone and applied equality in corruption and torture, making no distinction between one person and another. Ultimately, the Epstein case remains the greatest shock that exposed the world of elites and the powerful, proving that power and money do not protect their owner from an eternal fool. The lesson is that justice may be delayed, but the mouth of history does not stay silent, and the rope of injustice is short, no matter how long the threads of conspiracy are stretched. And you, dear viewer, share your opinion with us in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to our channel to receive all the latest updates.